So
I think Connie, I'll start out in kind of a first section and kind of design, planting, plant selection and such, and then Tawny will go over the planting methods and then
we'll have some question time.
yeah. Harmony. This is kind of an excerpt from a presentation I did for the Art of Gardening down at the Arts and Learning Center. So I was focusing on things that was artistic for sure, and harmony kind of was a big feature of that. And so to create harmony in the landscape, we look at the form, so height and shape, the texture of the plant, fine, coarse, medium, color. We've got 4 different seasons and plants that can have features in all seasons or specific seasons. And you want to try and put plants together that complement each other, have some contrasting features, and try and create a flow that works for you, right? And that can look differently for different people. So arrange trees and shrubs to form the foundation plantings. So in plant design and such, these are kind of the main things that are to think about and are kind of standards in the industry on how to create a landscape. So arrange the trees and shrubs to form your foundation plantings. You put those at the back. Put your smaller stuff in the front, like your shrubs, and then your perennials and such below that, right? Plant in groups. So I find that one little plant and one little plant, one little plant, and I know plants are expensive, so it's hard to just buy a whole bunch. But and as they spread, you can start to divide them and such. But you get more of an impact if you can plant a clump, right? And versus 1 or 2 little plants. So when you're thinking about that in your designs, that can bring out the plantings a little bit more. Try to use odd numbers and stagger so that things aren't planted in a row. I think the Black Forest in Germany, it was quite unique. They cut it all down, they replanted it all in rows, and it lacked wildlife and life, period, because there's no understory. It was planted in rows, and so odd arrangements and random arrangements are good.
Yeah. And when we're deciding what to plant, like at these beginning stages, it's about assessing our site before we go to plant. So these are some of the steps, the beginning steps that we're going to be doing when we go in to assess our site and look at what plants we want for that site, why we want to choose those plants. So with the harmony can kind of connect with our aesthetics too, of the types of plants that we want. And then our purpose goes into the screening, the shade, accent features. What would the plant material, what will it provide for us? We're talking about possibly providing fruit for us that would be another purpose for that. We got some great pictures here to
pictures
go into
here
that now.
I mean, you got your low growing juniper and your taller junipers there. Here you've got your evergreen here, your deciduous shrub here. In the back, you've got a taller tree, and then this bank of more Rocky Mountain junipers.
These are kind of utilized a lot for screening purposes when they are junipers.
Yeah, they're a little underutilized, in my opinion, but because they're super drought tolerant and yeah, they provide a pretty solid screen, and such. So
Mhm.
might be a good substitute for, as opposed to the Swedish columnar aspen that people
Mhm.
plant so much. And then here, pictures are a little grainy, but
I think that it has something to do with the screen because I noticed that like it on the computer.
it looks much
Sorry,
better.
sorry that it's
Yeah,
just
okay.
the screen itself, hey, Avery, or
I
just the
think,
kind of unfortunately the way it. Okay.
oh,
Okay.
nice.
Rewatch it later. Great, thank you.
So we got the red osier dogwood down here in front, and they're not real big yet, but then there's a bank of evergreens behind. So you got that red in front of the green, kind of shows up well. And here we've got some silver foliage here, a relative of the Russian olive, the wolf willow. It's a shrub mixed in with some pin cherries that are, looks like it's in fall here, so it's starting to turn yellow. And then in the back, we've got the spruce and some willow there. So
That dogwood is a great example of some winter interest. One of
yeah,
my favorites. There's also the yellow twig
yeah.
dogwood as well. That's beautiful for even in our natural areas. We have that wonderful for winter interest.
And winter interest is important because it's about 8 months of the year.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
So true.
yeah. And here's some silver buffalo berry. I think maybe some dogwood.
Maybe it's some dogwood there too.
And
Yeah.
some, but the silver buffalo berry with the red berries,
Yeah.
silver foliage, and the green in the background there.
And that's always such a nice contrast with the green and the silver, isn't it? Hey, in the landscape. Yeah.
Yeah. And then similar, I think, maybe potentilla dogwood. So potentilla's kind of this big, dogwood's about this big, and then you've got your oak and your spruce back there. See? I haven't seen one pine tree in here yet.
Oh yeah.
so
Okay. Now we've got a nice flowering,
double yeah.
flowering plum.
Double flowering plum, yeah. It flowers before the leaves come out. Right now, the forsythia are blooming. I don't know if you've seen the yellow shrubs
yeah.
out there. They're pretty.
Yep.
And then here's a chokecherry, some junipers, some spruce. So you got height variations, textures, differences. This is the Citizens Grove. Each year we plant some trees and some shrubs in a grove to celebrate National Tree Day, which is in the third week of September during National Forestry Week. And the scouts, Okotoks First Scouts typically are the ones that help us out. And here we've got our smaller shrubs down in front, right? And then we've got our evergreens, larger shrubs at the back. And then a deciduous tree here. I think there's another deciduous, couple more in there, but so ways to kind of design to create harmony and interest. And
Some great examples.
so site conditions. Yeah, this is important because plants have different growing condition needs. And so typically, if you're unsure, I mean, Google is great. If you're talking to the people at the garden center, they can probably help you out. The tag sometimes will tell you kind of what its growing conditions are preferred. Most, I don't know if most prefer rich, well-drained organic or soil with organic matter, pH of below 7. 7's neutral. Trees and shrubs like more acidic soil. And here, on the edge of the grasslands, it's at quite basic soils. And in Calgary, there's lots of trees that'll be chlorotic, which means they're yellow because the pH is too high and they can't get iron into them. So, but Okotoks here, soils seem pretty good. I don't see really any plants in town that look chlorotic.
Yeah.
And so that's a good sign that our soils are favorable. But so you look at the exposure, north, south, east, west, and such. Does it tolerate shade?
Mhm.
Does it prefer sun? As we were saying, things growing in full sun tend to be a bit more compact and versus stuff that's grown in the shade.
There are, may I add something quick?
Yeah,
Gord?
by all means.
So in regarding to prevailing winds, microclimates, there are some species that may be depending on if your yard is protected. I mean, you might be able to grow something that's maybe not quite in our zone. You might be able to test something out that if you have a really protected area or very like a south facing if a south facing exposure, then it's possible that you could test something maybe in a higher zone, possibly as well.
Yeah.
We find there's some trees, I know in my experience, linden has tend to grow better in a more protected area, but we are working with them on our boulevards and we're having some good success with them on our boulevards, much to my surprise.
Yeah.
And it's great because it's increasing our diversity of our urban forest as well. So
Yeah, it's good to have diversity in the landscape so that we don't have monocultures. I think we'll talk a bit about that. But so yes, every time we find a new tree that looks hardy and such, we're pretty excited.
yeah.
But yeah, we're here zone 2, zone 3 on the Canadian system. But in a microclimate, you might be able to grow something zone 4, zone 5. Sunlight, so sunshade, dappled, which is, yeah, kind of, we got a deciduous tree and sun's coming through. Space, so this is real important. It's one of the main reasons arborists have businesses, because trees are planted in a spot that maybe not the best. And after doing this for many years, a good arborist can make any tree fit any spot. If you start
When they're young.
when they're young.
Start when they're young. Yeah.
But quite often it's the tree has gotten big and it's like, and then they want to make it small.
Yeah.
So, and you just can't do it properly without violating all kinds of industry pruning standards. So putting it in the right spot is really important. Know how big the plant gets and make sure you provide the space for it. So yeah, wires, eaves troughs, windows, walks, decks.
Because we do like to promote natural form as much as possible of our plant material and your trees. You know, if you can maintain the natural form, it is most ideal.
Yeah, because then it's not as much maintenance typically, and the tree can quite often be healthier. The less you prune, the better, and less you're targeting. So yeah, Tony makes a really good point there that all these trees and shrubs have different features and habits, and you want to encourage those and bring them out and such, as opposed to make everything look like Disneyland, a little popsicle on top. Because that's a heavy maintenance and it's hard on the plant.
Yeah.
Moisture, wet or dry, soil type. We can have fairly heavy clays here. But yeah, and pine, they prefer sandy soils. Colorado spruce, well drained. Like if you put pine or Colorado spruce in a real wet area, it might not perform very well. And actually, that's maybe one of the times where I've seen plants go kind of chlorotic, it's just the leaves yellowing, is because they're in a spot that's too wet, and roots need oxygen, so to breathe and grow. So, and then I went over the last one there.
Yeah,
I think so.
You've got a little note here regarding lowering the pH.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, lowering the pH is a crapshoot. It's, I think there's I can't remember the product, some phosphorus-based product, I believe, and but through trials and tests, lowering the pH, it's just really random. You keep adding it, nothing happens. Keep adding it, nothing happens, and then all of a sudden, boom! Now you got something real acidic. raising the pH using like calcium and lime is something that's more predictable and something that agricultural farmers will do sometimes. But so in our situation, peat moss is an acidic soil amendment that can be used and to try and get the soil more acidic if you need to. Selecting plant species. So pick the right plant for the right spot. Oh yeah, we went over that. Look at that.
Yeah,
We had
we're
healthier
ahead of the game,
plants. Minimizes watering.
Yes, and we're starting to create the list. Now we've gone over all of those other objectives. We're now starting to see the plants. Hopefully, we've done some research, checked some things out, the books, internet, gone to the nurseries. And the great thing is Google these days. And you start finding the plants that you'd like to see in your landscape.
And yeah, the note there, that's, I think, a good note. You might not, find the perfect plant, but that's, I think, in life in general. You never find things, nothing's ever perfect.
Well, and one of just attending tonight is a way that you guys are gaining some information this evening and doing some research in preparation. So these are some examples of right tree, right location. These are examples of not the greatest locations.
Yeah, the east trough there looks like an Amur cherry or mountain ash.
Hammer cherry.
And low broad-headed tree planted right next to the house. Now, it's been pruned, like the arborist is pruning it such that it can live in that space, and eventually the canopy will just spread out over top of the roof, right? But maybe a smaller plant would have been more ideal there, and or
a taller shrub.
Moved out more or something like that, yeah. And then here, power lines. That's the beautiful thing about Okotoks. That new development doesn't have power lines, and it's amazing how healthier the forest is, because when you go to a neighborhood, old neighborhood in Calgary where there's power lines, you go down the back alley, just about every tree is topped, and all the trees going, or all the wires going to the homes, the trees under those are typically topped, and which is real stressful for the tree and doesn't allow it to have its natural shape, and it's a lot of maintenance. So yeah, there's cost savings in good planning. And then the Swedish columnar aspen, just going to say it's one of the trees that I dislike the most. And there's a few reasons. I don't know if this looks like a front yard, but these trees, arborists can't climb these trees using, or it's very difficult to climb these trees using traditional methods, a rope and a saddle and such. So if you can't get to it with a bucket truck, it's very difficult to do anything with these trees other than just try and take them down. Yeah. And yeah, and then the other thing is they're fairly short-lived. Hypoxylon canker is a disease that attacks aspen, and so yeah, you get a tree that's 20, 30 years old, quite big, and now it's got a canker in it. That's where the failure quite often will occur too. Bronze leaf disease is a new disease, relatively new. Not sure where it was introduced. I think found first in Manitoba area, but I've seen it on Swedish columnar aspen and tower poplar. I have not seen it on trembling aspen, so which is our native tree. So I say if you want aspen or Swedish aspen, just plant a trembling aspen. They're not this columnar form, but they are an upright canopy. It's not low, broad-headed. It'll grow upwards and have branches in it that an arborist can utilize to climb, because in the backyard you might not be able to get an aerial truck. And then tower poplar can get 75 feet tall when they're completely like mature. So,
And we are seeing them planted prevalently between houses in very tight quarters. So with the idea of choosing a different species in these tighter areas, like between the houses, or people have got them between their driveways and such, consider something that is actually not a plant. That's something that I've
Right.
removed several of these over the years, and we definitely took the time to talk to residents about considering a screen, because a lot of it was
panel
usually
and screen.
with on their deck or something, and providing that privacy for them, or maybe something on that upper level. I
Yeah.
don't want to be. I mean, certainly a supporter of planting trees, of course, but in certain situations, and knowing the difficulties that these trees can cause with the disease, and also just the difficulties of removing them in the case that you have many targets around you, going ahead with something that you don't have to water.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be dealing with that type of maintenance down the road, might be a better decision for you.
Yeah.
So we also tend to have, like, as you said before, too, the monoculture. It's common that we have a whole row of them. And because they are so disease prevalent, it's great to think of planting a diverse row, planting, interchanging them with some other type of species. So in the case that you do have the canker or any disease that travels through, you're not potentially losing your whole row of trees. It's only affecting that one species.
Yeah. And as we said, diversity is good. And so monocultures, there's lots of newer varieties of columnar trees, ones that grow quite upright. But anyway, so
well, we can talk about some more options too at the end there, regarding some columnar options, if you guys have any questions about that. I've been on the top of one of these many a times and thought to myself, I'd love to talk to the landscaper to this tree, as I've got 15 more feet above me and I've got to toss it like.
Yeah, exactly. I haven't dealt with a lot of them, but the few that I have, it's been fun. So here, just some examples of features that you might want that plants have. And here we've got, this is Saskatoon. This is in a forested setting, but with Doug fir and ponderosa pine. But yeah, the flowers and that dark black evergreen is quite nice. Here's a Norway spruce, and these cones can be about this big, right? So they really stand out compared to our native white spruce, which has cones that are about that big, So Japanese tree lilac on the left, the most common variety out there is the ivory silk. It's one that we use quite a bit. It's very compact growth and attractive bloom. That's extremely fragrant. And the one thing I like about it is it bloomed a little bit later than the other lilacs. Like most of the stuff in our region blooms in the spring. And then you got to rely on your perennials and stuff. But there are some plants out there that have a slightly later bloom. Mock orange is one. Japanese tree lilac's one. So it'll bloom after all the other lilacs that we have. And this plant might be hard to get. This is a barberry, and Japanese barberry.
It's a bit taller, isn't it?
Yeah, it can be a big plant, like 10 feet by 10 feet if you let it. But these purple leaves and these yellow flowers are just amazing. And then sometimes you're looking for a specimen tree. On the left there is a green ash, which is a boulevard tree in Calgary, I believe. That's where that one was. This is up at the if people know where the track is up at the south of the Okotoks Rec Center, this is what I
Sort of
think
like
is
your
my prize
pine. Yeah.
lodgepole pine. Lodgepole pine is Alberta's provincial tree, and this is a gorgeous specimen. It's big and healthy, and I was talking about pH. Now, lodgepole pine typically kind of turn yellow in the winter, like some of our junipers will change color in the winter, and if it's high pH and alkali soils, this tree will be yellow and not very attractive looking. It doesn't have any of those signs or symptoms, and so the soil is really good and it's happy, and that's about a 40-foot tree probably. And in an open grown situation, you can see it's very compact and bushy, right? Whereas a lodgepole pine out in Kananaskis or that forested area is going to be 50 feet tall or more and have a crown on it that's maybe a third of the height of the tree, right? And screening purposes, here's a dwarf Korean lilac hedge. This is my old yard in Calgary, and there's a cotoneaster hedge that just so big, and so I was trying to phase it out and planted the dwarf Korean lilac, and it's very compact, and it looks like grows like the Disneyland tree or shrub, and so it requires less maintenance. Here's a picture window that was looking out onto a back alley. So just, your purpose for your tree that you're planting sometimes influences what you're going to put there, for sure.
And I just want to point out that we do have a list we'll be talking about this at the end too, our resources, but the Okotoks, the garden and horticulture page within the town of Okotoks website does have a tree reference list, a preferred list that we'd like to recommend to Okotoks residents. It's a great starting point for you if you're looking for what to plant in your yard. We've got a number of trees actually in our community we have a small list. I say a number of trees, but we do have a small list for our area, for our growing zone. But on the other hand, we do have some really interesting trees that do for our area have some great features like fall color, like bloom, interesting leaf shape, and things such as that. Yeah. So here we're going into seasonal color. This is kind of like, is this a cedar actually?
It's a juniper that's
okay.
on top of a stick. It's kind of
it's like
one of those ornamental ones that
I thought maybe
not my favorite.
The Scots pine.
Because the Scots
pine has a nice.
This is a yew. Yew grow well here, but the deer might like them.
Yeah.
Well, maybe just give you that. You're probably aware, but yeah, when we're planting trees, if the deer can get them, they should be fenced until they're big enough that they can't be damaged.
So the evergreens, though, are great in our landscape because they're green all year round.
Yeah, and we have winter 8 months of the year.
Yeah.
So green is good.
And then here we've got some great fall colors, some options here. I mean, our green ash, as our boulevard list is small, but man, our green ash in the fall are striking.
They're not considered the most attractive, but
I know
a nice one looks good.
Yeah.
And the Ohio buckeye here has an interesting leaf shape and flower stalk and brilliant fall color. It can be sometimes yellow to red to orange, but that's one of our more unique trees that we found out is hardy here, and it took a while, but I think some of its northern ranges in Minnesota and North Dakota and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's part of the horse chestnut family.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna plug it a little bit, it's definitely one of my favorites.
Yeah, for sure.
The pomate leaf is just, it's unique. And it's got a really beautiful natural round form, very minimal pruning,
Yeah,
honestly, and fingers crossed, insect and disease.
yeah, really not much.
Not much of that either at this point.
I
So
I noticed there might be a leaf scorch or leaf
the leaf scorch, we're noticing that with the drought, with the
dry.
drier conditions that we've been experiencing.
So yeah, more environmental than hardiness
So,
and
yeah,
yeah, I think just some perennials with some trees and shrubs in the back, but just an example of, you know, different textures, heights, shapes,
yeah.
colors. When you're designing, that's kind of, you know, you want to try and incorporate stuff like that.
Now we're selecting our plants. We're off to the nursery, right? Yeah.
We
have
got
an
our
idea.
design.
Yeah. We've got the design down. Now we're off to pick up the plants.
So first point for trees, avoid included bark on branch attachments. We want branch attachments that have a bark ridge. I've got a picture in the next slide. And, you know, look that the bark isn't damaged. When you're buying container plants, you don't want it root bound. So if you can take the pot off and maybe you get the, not the clerk, but
Yeah.
the
Nursery worker.
yeah, the
nursery
worker
yeah.
there to help you with that. If you need help, just I'd like to inspect the roots. And if they're
Girdle.
super, if there's lots in there and they're really dense and they're growing around in circles, that's not one you want, because what happens is when you plant that tree, if you don't rip up those roots, and I mean rip them up, like we're like,
Yeah.
looks like we're killing the tree, but in order for it to have a long life, that's what's important to do, because those girdling roots tend to just grow in a circle their whole life. And then after about maybe 10, 15 years, it starts to give out or it might fail. So it's real important that you don't buy container plants that are root bound. And so, and if you're visually need some pictures, Google's great. So, poorly pruned plants. So we do a pruning kind of green living workshop and to kind of teach you how to recognize a good pruning and what bad pruning is. But typically, yeah, over prune. So they're trying to shape it too much. The spruce and pine, if they're shearing them, you want to stay away from those. If they're leaving stubs, they're not pruning back to leaders. I know that may be a lot of jargon there, but anyways, yeah, you want to try and buy plants that look like they're supposed to look and that are pruned well.
And depending on the species, looking for single leaders. Most trees you'd be looking for your terminal leader, not 2 leaders.
Yeah.
So you're looking at that when you're looking at your branch attachments and such for the trees that you're purchasing. We've got a picture of that coming up. We'll be able to reference that as well.
Yeah.
And also something I've noticed at the nurseries that's quite common too is really long tip growth. That means that the tree has been fertilized
Heavily with nitrogen.
heavily, too much fertilizer.
Yeah.
So it's actually better. But when you first come up to it, it appears that the tree's healthy and happy. But actually, finding it's best for you to find a tree that actually has shorter growth twigs, or the new growth is shorter, not really long and lanky. Took me a minute to get to that, but.
Yeah, buds might not. We're probably looking at leaves mostly when we're out purchasing. So, but good size, color, branch spacing. Kind of look at that. That's not all clustered in one spot. Damaged bark. Yeah. Okay.
You know, we got some great pictures here of
Branch
some branch
attachments.
attachments. There you.
So here's the branch bark ridge. So there the bark is pushing outward, and as a result, underneath the bark, the attachment of the branch to the main stem is connected by fibers. This is what we call included bark or ram's horning. So there's no ridge forming, and the bark grows inward. And if it does, the bark touching bark, there's no physical attachment there. And so the trees are prone to splitting. And so there's some trees that are more prone to this than others. Amur cherry are extremely prone to it. And so when you're buying these, you want to try and find something that's a single stem when you're planting amur cherry, but you can see how it's splitting here. That's a split right down the middle. That's kind of a different one. And this attachment here looks like it's high risk of failing as well. Mm-hmm. So look for the branch bark ridge on the branch attachments.
Some trees, this is an elm. Some trees such as elm just characteristically do have a lot of inclusions within their form. And while they're young, you can work to train them out, prune and train mm-hmm. those branch attachments out of the tree and work to make your tree more structurally sound.
I think, yeah, what we're saying there is you might not find a tree with zero included bark, but don't prevent that from buying a tree. Because the arborist will look for those defects and prune them out as the tree matures and mm-hmm. and keep the ones that are strong. Yeah. So. But it's good to start out strong if you can. And then here's just a bad cut. They just cut the top off and a shoot has come and grown up, but it's got a bad attachment there. And over time, that could be a point of failure. So over pruned, maybe it died back or something, but they could have done that better. Here's an example where we have a codominant stem starting. Some trees are more codominant than others. And as long as it's got a good branch attachment and has that bark ridge, then codominant stem isn't maybe as much of a concern, but quite often those codominant stems do have included bark. So you want to, if you see something like that, make sure that there's a good bark ridge if it's the only one left to pick. Mm-hmm.
And yes, and a good arborist too certainly could help you with a tree like that to assist you in making one leader instead of two, doing some successional pruning.
Tips: smaller plants get established quicker. So the trees that we're planting, the balled and burlapped, wire basketed, we kind of have to plant large caliper trees, one to resist the all the adversity that's out there, and lawnmowers and wildlife and kids and such. But smaller plants get established quicker, and as a result, grow faster. So it's not uncommon to plant maybe a 10-gallon tree, and that would be outgrowing a 50 mil caliper tree that might be 8 feet, 10 feet, and in a few years a small container plant can take off. And the other thing is it costs less, and you can do it yourselves generally, right? Which is why you're here. So, but if you're hiring people to plant trees, then you'll understand, and be able to critically kind of hopefully tell if they're doing it properly, ask the right questions. Because yeah, you'll see lots of examples of trees planted by landscapers
Yeah.
and professionals, but our industry is not regulated legislatively. So it's a challenge because, yeah, professionals have to compete with people that aren't. But sooner plants are established, the faster they grow, healthier they are. Well, plant, okay, I said that. More mulch around the trees, the better. I know our yards are only so big and stuff, but the bigger you can make that mulch well, the better. And
Yeah, there's some big, if I can add to that quickly, Gord, just the competition with turf. Again, unfortunately, I'm sorry, we don't have the images on this, but if you were to Google or research your root density under mulched area in comparison to under turf, the root density is tenfold. It's surprising how high the competition is. There is and grass is very competitive for pulling moisture and nutrients out of the soil, and the trees just don't fit.
yeah,
So,
one of the reasons you don't see trees in the grasslands and a lot of grass in the forest.
right.
Just kind of, yeah,
That's such a great point, Gord.
yeah, they like different things, but okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you have the ability to put it into a big mulch bed, even better, right?
Yeah.
Keep the grass and the plants separate.
Yeah.
That's how we try to do it as much as possible.
No, we're just,
And then, yeah, when you're bringing your tree home, make sure you protect it and don't damage the bark. And if you've got to do 100 kilometers down Deerfoot Trail, make sure it's
covered. Yeah.
and not whipping around.
Yeah,
in the
whipping in the wind. Yeah, try to always make sure if it is in the back of a truck or something like that, you just want to make sure that it's covered with a tarp or
wind. Yeah.
a bed net or something like that to protect the canopy.
So
Okay, now
planting
we're moving into planting methods.
So we've got our
So
tree.
now we've got our tree.
Yay.
Yay, we're at home. Yeah. Now we're getting into it now, digging the holes. So I guess, I mean, we've assessed our site. There's a possibility that when we've done our assessment of our site, we're going to be looking at the soil that we're going to be planting into. And it's possible that we might need to amend the soil. Upon digging your hole, you always want to make sure that you do Alberta One Call. What is it? It's 30 centimeters, any more than 30 centimeters. That Alberta One
Depth?
Call. Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
exactly.
It's just best to call Alberta One Call.
Yeah. If you're planting a tree, if you're planting
Yeah.
perennials and annuals, you're probably good. But
Yeah.
as soon as you start planting trees, it's good to know where your utilities are.
Yeah. So
Because one,
checking
you don't
out-
want to plant them over top of the utility, because if
Exactly.
it needs some work, then your tree's in the way, then
Yeah.
that could be a difficult
Yeah.
situation.
So a good first step is always to locate your utility lines. The hole itself, you're always wanting to make it approximately two to three sizes larger than the root ball itself, but only as deep as the root ball. Your depth is really important in keeping a healthy tree and helping that establishment. When you're removing your plant from the container, you want to support the tree or shrub by the root ball and not by the trunk. And it's quite common for us in that sense to want to pull the tree out like this. And what happens is that if I've got a video coming up here and it's going to kind of show you how to kind of get that tree or shrub out of your container pot. But ultimately you need to loosen it up a little bit first and gently find a different technique of maybe putting it on its side a little bit and gently pulling it out. If we pull it out too much, you just don't want to dislodge the tree itself or plant from the root zone. And that's what possibly can happen is if you are utilizing the trunk only to be transporting it around by the around the yard and to your planting hole there. So when you get it out of the pot, that you're moving it by the root ball itself. Do you have anything to add to that, Greg?
No, other than I noticed there's zeolite and gypsolite. Those are some products that
Oh, thanks.
help break up the clay and add nutrients to the soil as well. So, yeah, that's if you're wondering what those might be, that's it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so back at if we're needing to amend the soil, we have quite a few areas around town. We know of in some of the developments that we don't have a lot of topsoil too. We're kind of digging right into clay. In saying that, it's important for you to assess your site and whether or not maybe you need to dig out a larger area. Maybe you're bringing in topsoil or some of these other items to amend the soil that you're planting into. What do we have in the newer areas? We've got in the some of the newer developments, we do have like a 30 centimeter spec of topsoil that's in our newer developments, but some of the older developments have, I mean, I've seen like inches of topsoil that they've scraped. Of course, they go in and they scrape. Yeah, they scrape all the topsoil out. And
it used to be 4 inches of topsoil, and then it went to Okotoks anyways, went to 8 inches, and now we're at 12 inches. And the more soil out there, the better our plants are going to grow. Also, the more storm water and gets absorbed into the soil instead of running off and such. So that new specification. So in all our parks, there's got to be 12 inches of topsoil. Our trees are going to love it. But in those older areas where there's 4 inches of topsoil, it's tough.
It's tough growing conditions.
Yeah, it is. So.
Is Gord in the camera? Just a quick. He is standing over there. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
So when we get the tree out of the container, then as Gord was saying before, we want to rough up the roots. We want to prevent any girdling issues with the roots. So that's roughing it up with your hand, depending on the density of roots that are around the root ball itself, or you're taking an X-Acto knife and you're slicing every couple inches up the outer edge of that root ball and then getting underneath and cutting those roots as well, or doing root pruning would be another term. And then the other thing, depending on your hole, you just don't, the glazing, depending on the soil that you are working with, it's possible that you want to prevent glazing, glazing around the outer edge of your planting hole. And what that is that it's more difficult for the roots to penetrate the side of the hole. So it kind of is like planting them in a container pot in some of our clay, very high clay conditions, possibly. I'm thinking more too about maybe a larger tree, like a ball and burlap tree that you might be planting, or you might have hired somebody to plant.
A tree spade is a good example of when they dig that hole, the edges of the soil are, like Tony says, glazed. They're real smooth and real hard. And after a few years of freeze thaw, it probably loses some of that. But yeah, it's important to, in our standards, when we're planting those trees, we get them to rough up the edges of the hole. Digging by a shovel, less likely that'll happen. And take the end of the shovel and just kind of jab at the edges and the bottom just to get some loose, get some edges on the side of the hole.
So once our hole is dug, we've got it at the depth of the root ball itself. You're placing your root ball and tree into the hole, and you want to make sure that it's level, and you want to make sure that the trunk flare is the very base of the tree. The trunk will come down and then it slightly widens at the base. Now that's your trunk flare. You don't want that below grade level. It's better for it to be slightly higher than grade level than below. And we're going to talk a little bit more about depth a little bit later. Next step is ensuring then, it's always nice to have a partner in this situation when you're testing to see if it's straight or if it's leaning too far to the north or the south. and you're going to start backfilling. And we like to encourage people to backfill in layers. You start with, and breaking it up kind of in thirds. So that first third is kind of healing in that root ball, getting it in position. If you do have to kind of alter it a little bit, you're not dealing with a full hole of dirt and having to take a bunch out. You're just getting enough in there just to heal it in and get it in place. Once that's firmly stamped in there, you're going to add the next layer. And again, you're compressing it, not so much that it's fully compacted, but to get rid of any air pockets. It's like kind of a fine line.
Be firm.
You want it to be firm, but not so compacted that nothing's going to filter through the soil.
You don't have to jump up and down on it with your heel.
Yeah. And then, of course, and then our top layer. And then we're adding the additional water at that point. When you're adding the layers, you can be adding some other amendments, such as a slow release fertilizer. We always encourage you to go with a high phosphorus number. That's what's going to encourage the root growth and reduce transplant shock. Bone meal is another one. And then there's another product that I've used in the past. It's a seaweed extract called Wurzel Dip. And we've had a really good success with that. That's Professional Gardener is a company that sells that one. Finish filling the hole in with soil and apply 5 centimeters of soil in a circle. So this is what this line is saying is that we've filled up the hole, and then we're going to create like kind of a little circle around the edge, around the tree well, that when we do water, it's going to hold that water in place so it can slowly trickle down to the root ball, to the base of the root ball. Then we're going to get our mulch out. We recommend 3 to 4 inches of mulch around the tree well, but being sure not to bury the trunk flare. This is a really good point too. We've got here raw wood chips may cause denitrification. So, and what that is that if the chips that you're putting down haven't had a chance to compost or decompose a bit, the decomposition of them placed under your tree will actually pull nitrogen from the soil while they're decomposing. So it's good to always find mulch that's been sitting for a little bit, had some time to compost, and then it's adding the organic material back into your soil instead.
Yeah. I suspect most of you won't run into that issue, but because the mulch you'll buy will already be somewhat composted. But us as arborists, we have raw chips, and people bring us chips, and we try and store them for a bit before we put them out. And if you're doing a big bed and you're bringing in lots and you're trying to save money, and the arborist will bring them for free because he just needs a place to dump them. But they're raw, then maybe.
So staking, we tend not to stake our trees unless we are in a position where we need some wind protection. They're a little top heavy, or maybe they're going into shallow soil. For the most part, if you've healed in that tree well, it shouldn't need a stake. If you do feel that you need a stake, though, 2 years maximum for the stake. If the stake stays on for too long, a tree will lose it loses its stability. And what happens is as the tree is establishing itself and growing, it needs to move. And with the movement from the wind, it actually is building a stronger structure. That trunk flare is developing more. And that's really what's protecting it from, in the future, from falling over or breaking. And the other thing about that too, what I thought about that actually is I've just recently heard too about houseplants. Like we should be shaking our houseplants. So it's kind of the same idea that, which I thought was kind of neat, because it's really important aspect of why we don't stake our trees.
The forces of nature are like exercise for the tree. And so as it moves around, it builds wood and grows wood to counteract those
Mhm.
forces
Yeah.
and keep it upright and.
And here we've got allow the tree to move as much as possible, remove after one full season, but it's, yeah, 2 would be the most.
Yeah, yeah. And don't allow, like, don't, the straps that hold it to the stake, you want those to be loose so the tree can still blow around, just not fall over.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, so you don't want to like
Yeah.
kind of, because yeah, then it doesn't have the develop good roots as a result.
And then for watering, we don't want to let the plant dry out. So when you first, during establishment, it's really important to probably to water almost every week, or not almost, you water every week, depending on weather conditions. I mean, if we're getting lots of rain, obviously we're going to pull back on our watering. And if it's really, really dry, we may want to water some more than that. But just during the establishment period, it's really important that that root ball doesn't dry out during that establishment period. So here at the town, we actually water our new trees up to 3 years every week, and then thereafter we go to an every 2-week schedule to wean them off. Typically,
Sure.
2 years though. Again, it's whether it's environmental or it's whether what's the word I'm trying to think about? Sorry, I'm losing
I
my
don't know
words.
if they needed it or not.
Yeah, it's just weather dependent. Sorry,
Okay,
dependent
yeah,
is the word. Simple word that I yeah. It's weather dependent, of course, but
Yeah.
the most important thing is that it's not drying out in those first couple of years of establishment.
And just maybe mention, you can drown trees. So especially the ones that don't like water, like the pine and
Thank
the
you for adding
Colorado
that, Gordon.
spruce.
Yeah.
You know, mulch retains moisture and does a good job of it. And if you've got a real heavy clay soil that doesn't drain very well, and I'm trying to picture some of the examples I've seen, the bottom of a slope at the property and a lot of mulch. And then they've got automatic irrigation system, and then it's raining.
Yep.
And then next thing you know, yeah, the soil is so wet, the tree's drowning. Yeah. So, and the symptoms can look like the same as if it dries out. The leaves turn yellow and drop off. And quite often, well, I've had people watering our trees and said, yeah, I kept giving it water and it just wasn't working. And it's like, well, that's why, because we're overwatering it.
Yeah.
And because, yeah, the needles eventually fell.
Perfect. Thank you so much for adding that.
Yeah.
So I got a little video here just to kind of go over. So we're really focusing on mostly on the container plants here. Ball and burlap is something a bit different.
You're going to hire out.
Yeah, and similar steps. The big thing with instead of pulling it out of the container though is that when that tree is placed in the hole and you're layering those thirds when you're backfilling, once it's healed in, then you're taking the time to pull that burlap off, and the wire basket usually has to be removed down to the second ring. If the second ring is not removed, it always has to be cut at least in 3 spots to encourage good establishment of that tree. This is one of our resources that we'll talk about a little bit at the end here, but if you're looking for more areas to find more information about planting trees or different types of trees or just industry standards, this Arbor Day Foundation is a great website. So. Wonder if I can make this bigger.
Maybe.
Sorry, guys, I'll just see if I can get this in a bigger screen here.
There you go. Yeah, it was being
Perfect.
hidden by the
Okay.
cookie
Yeah.
pop up.
So this is where he's tapping the sides, Gently pulling that out. A little bit more difficult when your trees are bigger.
That looks pretty good for roots there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're showing you, you could probably rough that up with your hands.
So they're testing the level. Packing it in.
They skipped the first 2 layers.
Yeah, well. Layering,
This-
yeah, more for our larger trees, isn't it, than our shrubs and our,
Well, no, it's still
Yeah.
important to
Yeah.
do it that size too, yeah.
Yeah.
Might not need daily for 2 weeks, but
Yeah.
just don't let it dry out.
yeah,
It's like weather dependent. It
yeah,
might be
exactly, yeah.
cool and might be hot.
And then just talking about too, like when we're just going back to layering that soil when you're backfilling, I mean, on the smaller plants, yeah, you're still kind of adding that first layer just to kind of heal it in, make sure it's straight with where you want it, and then you're bringing those extra layers up.
Okay.
So here I've just got some examples now. I mean, the importance of planting depth. And you saw that in that video there, they put out that nice little kind of bamboo stick. In the past, using a rake or a shovel or something like that. It's also helpful.
Mhm.
But I really like to encourage the importance of planting depth. In my experience over the years, we have, as arborists, not very many arborists are part of the planting process. We are called upon to go into to assess tree health after the tree has been planted. One of the first things that we always check is planting depth. Planting depth, if a tree is planted too deep, it can inhibit growth. It inhibits establishment because the tree just has to work that much harder. And yes, trees will keep living, but what you'll find is that they just don't get any bigger. They survive instead of thrive in their location. And in saying that, so what happens? So this is a couple pictures that I have here. So this was a tree that we came upon. We ended up having to pull out. And I have to say that I've been fortunate that we've had the experience to be able to pull them up and just see what was going on and take that extra time to have an understanding of why this tree is either not thriving or has died. And so in this instance, this is the top of the root ball right here. So this tree was buried like over a foot deep. And in the case that you are hiring people to plant trees for you, sharing this knowledge with you is important, that when you do hire these people, that you know that you are being aware of the steps that they're taking when they are planting the trees, and considering these steps when they're doing so, because these are big investments. This is an investment for your property when you are purchasing these trees and designing your landscape. It's a big investment, since it's a long-term investment for yourselves. And it's best to do it so these trees will grow and be here for the future, right? So in this instance, they didn't remove the basket and clearly planted it way too deep. In this instance over here, we have an instance where they planted it too deep and they didn't even take the burlap off around the tree itself. So we went in and we actually removed all the burlap from the base of these trees and opened them up. And actually they ended up doing better. So what the burlap was basically doing was choking.
Save them.
Yeah, we did save them, gave them a little bit more of a chance. Yeah.
Maybe arborists should plant more trees instead of just prune trees.
Yeah. Yeah.
Might be our own fault.
Yeah, it's kind of a gap in our industry of communication. We certainly have talked about that a bit at our conferences a bit too. So, and then saying that trees try really hard. They're amazingly resilient. And what happens is when a tree is planted this deep, is that these roots down here basically become anaerobic. They don't have any oxygen. So what the tree starts doing is it starts pushing out roots in this area here, little adventitious roots, and basically creating a new root system. So that's why the tree doesn't grow too much. You don't see the trees growing much because they're just working so hard to establish a new root system.
We're getting close to the end.
Yeah. No, that's more like when you're getting kind of shoots up off the roots. Yeah, there's certain trees like a Schubert chokecherry as an example it's just like more of a characteristic of the tree. Yeah, no, but that sometimes when it's buried too deep, it stresses the tree. And you can see shoots popping up. But with the Schubert chokecherry, more of a characteristic. And this is, again, we've got a couple examples here too. Again, this one was just planted too deep, basket not off. This one here, this tree is upside down, but there was a spruce tree that was in the ground for 20 years and just suddenly died. And upon further inspection, we found that the tree planter buried them well below grade level and didn't even take off the tie straps. So this area here, you imagine it the other way, but this area here, this was actually the roots here. This was the trunk. The tree worked hard. It really tried because trees can grow around things. I don't know if you've seen trees grow around fences and bikes and
rocks.
Yeah. So the conditions were good enough in this location that the tree worked really hard to grow around that tie strap, but ultimately it was its demise. It had root rot and the tie strap girdled the tree. So just a couple things to look for. The other thing is landscape fabric. Landscape fabric's very common in our landscapes. And when you are planting your trees and you're using landscape fabric, just make sure that you're always keeping that area, you're giving space to the tree itself or monitoring it as the tree grows, because the tree ultimately over time, it can also choke the tree and girdle the tree possibly. No, it should not go up to the tree. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's actually
just, keep it back a few inches and as it grows, just keep cutting it back.
Yeah. I'd actually, depending on the type of landscape fabric, depending on the type of landscape fabric, if you don't have good water penetration, it's even better to take it back a little bit farther from the base of the tree, just so you can have good water filtration further into the root zone as well.
The overwatering, the fabric has been a contributing factor to that because the mulch and the fabric, it doesn't evaporate very well. And so, you can really exacerbate the problem with fabric. We don't like it. We don't use it. One, because we want the mulch to break down and feed the trees. And with that layer in there, that doesn't happen. And the weeds will still come up in it and such. So
so even in these kind of xeriscaping landscapes, it's suggested that you still have a tree well that's mulched around the trees and not have your rocks come right up to the base of the trees. So some watering tips for watering your new tree. You're always just checking the soil first before you water. If it is wet and saturated, you're not watering that day. You're going to wait till another day. And slow and low is also key when applying the water, because that assists for full saturation of your root ball.
And it can percolate beyond that and deeper, and the roots will follow that. So a slow rate for a longer period of time will encourage roots to go deeper.
we spoke about this a little bit, but making the tree well, so that's adding that little rim around your tree well assists in holding the water to help with that saturation. Watering once a week. Mulching your trees and shrubs mulching the trees and shrubs helps retain the moisture in the soil, regulate temperature, provide nutrients to the soil. Again, just making sure even with your shrubs that you're not burying the base of your shrubs or your trees with the mulch. We call it volcano mulching.
Yeah.
Like to create these big volcanoes around the base of their trees and shrubs. And that's just like planting your plant material too deep. It suffocates the base of the tree and increases the chance of trunk and root rot.
Okay, yeah.
We've also utilized, you'll see these tree gators. If you have areas where you don't have good percolation or slow percolation into the soil, these tree gator bags are a nice investment, and they'll release the water over a 5 to 9 hour period. Also, moisture meters are also helpful too if you're wanting to have some assistance in knowing whether or not the tree needs water or not. And then we're onto our resources. So of course, our top of the list, the horticulture hotline. If you guys have any questions or about your landscapes or about any plant material in your yards, the horticultural hotline will get you in touch with us at the office. Also, we encourage you to check out the gardening and horticulture page on the Town of Okotoks website. That's where you will see a recommended tree and shrub list. The Water Conservation Rebate Program, they also have, we encourage you to check out that as well. And that is on, sorry, the green, it's a sustain, which page is that on? Sorry. Green Living. Thank you, Avery. And they have a list of drought tolerant trees and trees, plants and seeds and perennials that are specific to that rebate program. So if you purchase off of that list, then you will be eligible for some rebates as well back from the town. The City of Calgary has a great, it's a great resource as well. They have a great page on planting trees and shrubs, going into your planting steps and planting steps, tree options, and also yeah, they just have disease, insect. They have, it's a great, City of Calgary has a great resource. Some more industry type resources would be the International Society of Arboriculture. That's where our certifications, our governing body that we are certified as arborists through. Arbor Day Foundation is where that little planting video came from. Trees Are Good is another website, and then Tree Time. And I understand we'll have some resources that we can send out to you if you'd like. Will they just leave their email address with you, Avery, or if everybody's interested?
These resources, anything that we've shared, links to all the websites. So on Tuesday, I will be sending an email to all of our registrants announcing we will do a little prize draw for both in person and online. So I'll announce those winners on Tuesday via email, and then I will also be sending out to all registrants all of this information. And I know we were having some technical difficulties earlier for those online. So the full recording will be posted to our YouTube channel in the next few weeks. So if you want to go back and see any of these. But yes, we also do have up here, we have a printed out version of the plant recommendations, as well as the water conservation rebate program. So this one is separate, and it does note that on this, but not all of the plants on our recommended plant list are eligible for the water conservation rebate. Trees, I will say if anyone is planning to purchase trees, I would definitely select one of these. You can basically a free tree. So it's $100, sorry, 100% of first $100 and then 50% of the remaining of each tree that you buy. So it's a really great deal. You can
get a
quite a bit of money back for your trees. And these also have some instructions on planting and all that information. So if you do have any questions about the water rebate program, you can send me an email. I do have my cards up here as well. But yeah, we have some great information.
And we do have a deer, we have a deer list plants. Yeah, coming soon to, it's in the works, but it's coming soon. Yes, you'll see that there is some deer resistant recommendations on this list itself, but just working to build the information that we have available on the website, and that's something that's coming as the deer issue.
In the morning. when
It's
you get up,
prevalent.
They're just new lawn ornaments.
Yeah, they are, aren't they?
Pretty much.
Yeah. So, yeah. So thank you so much for coming. It's just great having you all here this evening and spending this time with us. Thank you to everybody online as well that's joined us today.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
yeah, thank you. And does anybody have any questions about anything?
Right. It's nasty. It can, because every one of those little tubers can split off into another plant. Repeated herbicide use will keep it in check, may not kill it entirely. Yeah, it's a tough plant. I use straight pickling vinegar and yeah, on small little plants, it looks like it kind of controls it fairly well. But if you got a big patch of it or something, then yeah, it's tough to, because a broadleaf herbicide, yeah, just isn't quite strong enough, it seems. Yeah. Yeah. If you can, provide like a non-selective herbicide, kills everything. I don't know if is that Roundup or, I think, yeah, I say non-selective. It means anything green, it kills. Selective, it'll kill the broadleaf plants and not the grass, right? So the non-selective herbicide is more effective. But if it's in your grass, then yeah, it would kill your grass too. So yeah, it's a challenge. What's that? Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you sacrifice some grass and like you said, once it's taken effect, then kind of re-prep the area and soil and seed. Ooh,
Is it possible that the tree had some disease, or what type of tree was it?
It was
What-
actually very.
What kind of tree was it?
Sure.
It was a Schubert chokecherry. Okay. Because they're prone to Pseudomonas, like the bacterial. It's actually, they're prone to black knot, but also prone to Pseudomonas. In my experience, I've seen like very fast death of the chokecherry if it has the Pseudomonas. So it's possible that it's the bark peels off. It's in the trunk usually,
Mhm.
and you have peeling, the bark usually peels away off the trunk. Is it possible? No, okay.
and
It could very well, maybe it's, well, certainly,
likely, but
yeah. We're always like looking at that 1/3 rule. If it was more than a third, then it could cause some undue stress on your tree. Otherwise, it could very well be something that's unseen, that's in the ground. Again, that sudden death, like when there's a tree that's girdling itself, and if a tree is girdling itself, you'll just have a sudden death. It will die very quickly.
It had roots, it took over the winter, roots for there.
Okay,
right.
okay. Yeah, and unless
would-
we actually saw it. it's
Yeah,
very
exactly.
difficult
You would
to-
have to
Yeah.
see it to really have a better idea of what might happen, but
Mhm.
typically, or go ahead.
Yeah, well, just going back to the third, I mean, you're ultimately anything over, if it's over a third, there's different factors, environmental conditions that are factors to the health of the tree as well. But the general rule is no more than a third of the canopy should be removed out of the tree at one time. So if you're going over that, then there's a higher possibility that the tree may become stressed in some way or another. And then if you have other environmental conditions or other things that are also causing stress, then the tree might die in that case.
And
but-
quite often trees die, there's multiple causes.
Exactly.
Just
Yeah.
like an incident or something.
Yeah.
It's not just one thing, it's a combination of things that leads to that. And
Yeah.
over pruning, you're gonna get two responses. If you've got a healthy tree, over pruning, you're probably gonna get more growth as opposed to die back. If you over prune a tree that's not doing so well, then instead of regrowing to try and regain what it lost, it might start to die back. And yeah, Tawny mentioned some diseases there that can act pretty quickly sometimes, yeah.
I'm sorry that you lost your tree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Any other questions or,
Awesome. Well, thanks again for coming.
thank you.
Yeah.
Big
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
Looking forward
Yeah.
again.
Appreciate
you.
you coming.
Yeah.
Time and expertise. So don't forget to check out our upcoming workshops and events. So the Green Living Events QR code is here. It's also just okotoks.ca/Green Living Events. So our next one is the community cleanup and tree planting. So this is on Saturday, May 10th, from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the Sheep River Park Picnic Shelter, which is in the Lions Campground. So we'll be meeting there, and you can pre-register online, or you can just show up the day of. And we will also be doing some tree planting, I believe.
Test your skills.
Probably with.
Yeah.
with those two. So, yeah, we will see you there. But yeah, hopefully you enjoy the rest of your night, and we hope to see you at our future events. We do have a bunch of materials up here that you are free to come grab. Oh, yeah.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Is there ability, I appreciate feedback and,
Mhm.
and, you know, did we cover topics that you wanted? And did we go on too much about one thing or something or whatever? It's nice to have feedback. So if you've got an email contact
I'll be
with Avery.
They can just respond to me, and I will be happy to pass it on anonymously, of course. to
Yeah.
our Presenters here.
Yeah,
If
exactly.
you have any questions or anything, you can just respond to that, and I'll make sure to pass it on as well, so we can get your questions.
You send out
Awesome. Thank you.
like, I couldn't read it.
Yes, so we will be posting like the recording of it, so it'll have all the slides as well as their talking, so you can kind of.
Mhm. But we do have some of those resources. And if you are on the mailing list,
Mhm.
sorry, I keep referring to this mailing list as, but I'm not sure if
Yeah,
I'm not sure what it is. Sorry.
Registered, or if you didn't
Okay,
register,
yeah.
make sure you write your email down
Okay.
on the paper outside, and we'll make
Yeah.
sure it gets all this information.
Yeah, so we've got
Lots of
a
information.
number of sheets that will be sent out to you.
Okay.
Yeah, that will basically go through all those steps that we just discussed. You bet.
And the Hort hotline, I'm trying to think of the address. I don't know if it's horticulture at
Well,
okotoks.ca.
Actually, on the gardening and horticulture page, there's a direct link to the Hort hotline.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, so
Okay.
again, that checking out the garden and horticulture page on the website is a great resource.
Yeah, because I saw it just directed to the town website, but navigating a website can sometimes be challenging, but
Yeah, if you get to the
anyways,
town website and you just punch in garden and horticulture, it will take you to that page. Yeah, and that page will have the Hort hotline direct link that you can email. You can email the Hort hotline, or there's a number that you can call as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it comes right to.
And then of
29.
course, there's also parks inquiries that we have too. And if you end up navigating to, that's another route that you can get in touch with parks, that it would come to us if it's a tree or horticulture question. It would end up coming to our department as well. So parks inquiries as well as another route. Mhm.
Fences.
That's always consensus.
Yeah, if a fence, yeah, should be about the 7-foot range. 7 to 8 is kind of what's Yeah.
Mhm.
And if it's a small enclosure, 5 feet might be enough to keep them from jumping in. Or if it's 5 feet high and further out from the tree so that they can't reach into it or,
Jump in for.
yeah, yeah. Well, that makes it easy, but yes, we do have, some, amendment to our, land use bylaw. Excuse me, which allows people to extend the height of their fences and put some fencing in your front yard if you want. I'm doing that this year. No, I mean, I've looked into it. I think they're fairly benign and not much risk to human health, and they're probably good fertilizer. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I heard one time that putting human hair around the base of the tree,
Humans aren't scary humans.
but we'd all be running around bald together.
Yeah, maybe, eh? Anything you do that you think works, please call us and share it with us because
Mhm.
I'll spread the word. Yeah, it's a challenge.
Stop them from jumping if it's enough.
It might and would, yeah, if they don't force their way through it. Something big and wide, like a big lilac or something, or dogwood might not be quite a robust enough plant, and they like to eat dogwood.
Yeah,
So
that's
they
the
might
tricky
just
thing.
mow their
Yeah.
way through it. I don't know for sure. They do eat chokecherry, which is in the same family as a plum. So on our website, there's some trees that they will browse and some that they don't. Small trees are all very susceptible to antler rubbing, which is what can really kill the tree. If they nibble a few leaves, or it might not kill it. And if your tree is big enough and they can just get the bottom 6 feet, then you're in the clear. But yeah, until your tree gets big enough, fencing and it is a challenge to grow anything under 6 feet now. And so we're going to try forsythia. We
Yeah.
think it's our new star
Yeah.
plant.
Oh, well,
Maybe
we've
we
been
were talking
inspired by
about
the
it.
blooms. The yellow blooms are so beautiful right now. If you keep your eyes open when you're in
Forsythia.
town, forsythia. Yeah.
FOR.
They're kind of like a bit of a
SY?
shaggy shrub, but they have incredible,
They're big and
beautiful,
yeah, yeah.
full yellow blooms.
Yes.
Huh?
Yeah.
Oh,
They can be a 6 foot plant. I mean, at least I think
Yeah.
if given the time and the space.
not as big as a lilac. Not as big as like a regular lilac. Sorry, the Miss, is it the Miss Kim?
Or
Sorry.
dwarf
Dwarf
Korean.
Korean.
Yeah.
Would
It's
you
kind of
say-
a 6 foot by 6 foot
Yeah.
plant,
Yeah.
which is small for a lilac.
Yeah.
Because no, just
No.
right now.
Just right now, just gorgeous.
Spectacular, yeah.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
really
and
beautiful spring color.
before they leaf out, they flower, kind of like the double flowering plum.
Mhm.
And so, but the plum is a little bit later. And so we're noticing the plant around town in areas that the deer have access to, and they still exist. So it means that the deer, if they like them, they don't really like them very much enough that they're, well, yeah, I looked at one the other day. I saw a couple of browse marks, but that was it. It was an 8 foot plant. A nice.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's a huge, I've never seen one that
Yeah, it was
big.
in Downey.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Questions, feel free to pop up, but we have all of the information that we've all been talking about up here, so feel free to help yourself.
Take some of that if you want.
And we'll also be sending it all over email as well.
Are you sending this stuff? Oh.
Yes, but you can also just grab.
That way I don't have to decide what.
Perfect.
Okay. On the computer.
Excellent.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
You're
thank you so
welcome.
much again for coming.